Now here is the risk that the Browns had to take with I love you, Cleveland. And I love you, Ohio. And a very pleasant welcome to this week's version of Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. Hi, I'm Bruce Drennan, and normally I'm with Ryan Smith, my producer, but unfortunately, Ryan has been experiencing some major car problems. Yesterday, he told me that he blew out a tire on a pothole. And today, he can't even get into his car because of the fob and I don't know what. But Pat McGuire is here to sub for Ryan. Pat, of course, is very familiar to you if you're a fan of Big Play. He produces the Hanford Dixon Show, Object of the Game, with Coach Kyle and Maureen Kyle. Bobby Carpenter's show on a daily basis. Pat, poor Ryan.
Oh my God, Bruce, it's tough. It's so cold out here that I think his car like froze or whatever. He has to have someone shimmy in there, the window or whatever, break a window, but the guy can't catch a break right now.
Told me he called the cops. The cops couldn't even get in.
That's unbelievable. I mean, you'd think that they'd be knowing how to do this by now, but if the cops can't get into the car, what do you do there? You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand what your next step is.
He was I talked to him this morning when he told me that he was arranging to have you sub for him because of all these problems. And I said, just relax. It'll all work itself out. Just relax. Don't worry. So at any rate, good to have you with us, Pat. And indeed, we have a fun packed show, if you will. Gene Winters, my old producer at Sports Time Ohio and Fox Sports when I was doing the show on the network, will be joining us. He is the statistical graphic designer for the telecasts of Cavaliers basketball. He's an NBA statistical expert. And we'll do one segment with him on the Cavs and the NBA. And then the other segment, I want to talk baseball with Gene because his favorite sport is baseball. And he happens to be in the same fantasy baseball league as yours truly. So we'll have some fun with Gene. Curtis Danburg will be joining us, Director of Communications for the Cleveland Guardians organization. And as we announced last week here on the show, the Guardians have a new television package and television network offering the public. And we will go into detail with Curtis. He'll explain everything in the most simplified terms, we hope. And then obviously we'll bring you up to speed on everything else that's happening in the world of sports. But I want to start with the Browns and the latest there. Now, as you know, I have been down here in Florida for the last couple of months and will be here until we depart, I think, on March 8th. So here still for a couple of more weeks. As you know, I have been advocating trading Myles Garrett. I said so before the trading deadline during the season, let alone now. And Andrew Berry is vowing that he is not going to trade Garrett. He is saying he doesn't want to trade him. He's not going to trade him. I understand why he's got to say that. Otherwise, he loses his bargaining chip big time. So I totally am understanding of that, but I hope that we're not believing him literally because the Browns aren't going to contend for the Super Bowl next year with or without Myles Garrett. So get what you can and build for the future rather than a new 5-year plan every 2 or 3 years. Let's really get a plan started so within 2 or 3 years, the Browns realistically can contend for a Super Bowl. I personally don't think the quarterback of the future is in this draft. I'm not a believer of Sanders. I'm not a believer of Ward. I could be wrong. Who knows? There could be a sleeper like Will Howard. I wouldn't object if the Browns take a flyer on him in later rounds in the upcoming draft. But I think zoom in on maybe a kid like Manning in next spring's draft as perhaps the quarterback of the future, and fill the void of trading Myles Garrett by taking this Carter from Penn State. So that's my 2 cents. What is the latest back home, Pat?
Yeah, I think everyone is kind of just resigned to the fact maybe that the Browns are going to take a quarterback, but this feels to me a little bit kind of like when Saquon Barkley was coming out, where it's like you have this upper echelon talent, but you think you got to take the quarterback. Like obviously Baker Mayfield had good times here in Cleveland as well, but I think personally, I think they should take Abdul Carter, but I think the citywide thinks that they're going to take a quarterback and thinks that they should take a quarterback.
Well,
didn't say that was a good decision though. I didn't say that.
I mean, taking quarterbacks is habitual with Cleveland Browns football and the front office, and it fails time and time and time and time again. So they better darn well be sure that if they do take one of these quarterbacks, he is the franchise guy. I'm not convinced. I don't claim to be a draft expert like Mel Kiper or anything, but Mel is wrong a lot of the times too, and he's a good friend of mine. So I just don't get the front office thinking that they can contend next year. They got to go on and get a veteran quarterback. And if they spend a lot of money on Kirk Cousins, that is wasted money. Right now, the federal government is trying to do away with wasted money. Well, in terms of to relate to the Browns, that's wasted money. They're not going anywhere with Kirk Cousins or Sam Darnold. I think he'll stay with the Vikings myself. But I mean, I don't get that mentality either. You just throw away next season, rebuild for 2 years from now, and be an upstart team like the Commanders were. Pat.
Yeah, that's the argument. You'll hear Nick Padone here in the studio make that same argument about why you should take a quarterback with Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, because the way that Washington was able to make it to the NFC Championship with a rookie quarterback, I think that's more the exception than the rule, though. But you can understand where the argument comes from. You need a quarterback, so you got to try to take one. But you know, that's not going to happen every year with someone like Sam Darnold or Kirk Cousins. It doesn't happen like that in this league. You have to have a bona fide megastar at quarterback to make sure you can go deep in the playoffs.
You're right about a rookie quarterback. It's the exception to the rule, but we've had a couple of those in the last couple of years. Obviously, Daniels this year, and 2 years. It's Stroud with Houston, and they've made great strides. So it can be done if you choose the right guy and you have the right coaching, which again has been a major problem for the Cleveland organization. With the combine coming up, that's going to be February 26th through March 3rd, 329 prospects in Indianapolis. NFL draft will be staged in Green Bay this year, Thursday, April 25th through Saturday, the 27th. Tennessee, of course, picks first, Cleveland is second. If you're thinking of Travis Hunter, who's the best athlete in the draft, there's no argument there. 713 of the offensive snaps that Colorado had this last year, he participated in. 740 defensive snaps. What an athlete. Incredible. For the combine, he can't go as a two-way player. They've got him listed as a defensive back. The quarterbacks that will be available are Jackson Dart of Mississippi, Quinn Ewers of Texas, Dylan Gabriel of Oregon, Will Howard, Ohio State, Riley Leonard of Notre Dame, Jalen Milroe of Alabama, Sanders of Colorado, and Cam Ward of Miami. So take your pick. Combine just a week away. Take it for what it's worth. Finally, Pat, before we go to break and we welcome Gene Winters, what's the latest with Haslam and the Brook Park move of with the building of the stadium? Bring me down here in Cape Coral.
Yeah,
bring
down
me up
in the
to
sunshine,
speed.
Bruce. Yeah. But there's been some news. So obviously, as of January, they purchased the land that was that big 170 acre, whatever that was. But I guess they're more diving into the financials of it. So there's going to be less city funds, I believe, and more from the actual Haslam family themselves that they'll have to fund for this Brook Park stadium plan. So it's going to be less city funding, and I know this came from Mayor Bibb's office and a little bit from the state as well. So they gave more of a breakdown of how the actual funding is going to be used in the city and in the statewide and taxes and everything like that. So there's a little bit more clarity there. I don't think it changes anyone's opinions one way or the other of whether Brook Park is a good idea, but it's actually good to get some of the financials going for sure.
Yeah, well, and the city shouldn't accept a bulk of this. I mean, Haslam's a billionaire. a multi-billionaire. So, and he's going to reap the benefits. If he goes to Brook Park, he'll get all the concessions. He'll get all the parking. He'll get all of the jersey sales, everything like that. So I do agree. And I sympathize with the public in that regard for having to pay for these multi-billionaire owners who reap the benefits for themselves. It's incredible. When we come back, Gene Winters will be joining us next. Bonus time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network.
Now here is the risk that Browns had to take with
Great to have you back with us. Bonus time with Drennan here on Big Time. Gene Winters, my long-time producer and dear friend on all the radio and TV shows I've done here in the Cleveland market over the years. Of course, Gene is presently the statistical graphic designer for the NBA telecasts on FanDuel of our Cleveland Cavaliers. He's an NBA statistical expert. And of course, we'll talk baseball in the second segment because his favorite sport happens to be baseball. Gino, how you doing, partner?
Not too bad. I'm guessing probably not as well as you are, but not too bad over here.
Yeah, I don't even want to tell you what the temperature's been like down here. I don't want to torture you. I don't want to rub it in. But the weather people down here said, oh, my, a cold spell is coming. It's going to be in the low 70s.
Of course, yeah.
So,
I'll enjoy my 9.
You are busy because of this name change with the arena, huh?
Yeah, just yesterday the press release came out for Rocket Mortgage changing their name. So Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse is now going to be Rocket Arena starting on Friday when the Cavs return home against the New York Knicks to start the second portion of the season. You know, again, really not the halfway point because they're already over that, but the mythical second half of the season. So yeah, coming up Friday, new name, new logos, new everything coming up on Friday. So it's been a fun 24 to 48 hours of making sure all this gets changed before they tip off.
And people may not realize how much work that means for you in changing the designs of what everybody sees during the telecast. So I don't envy that assignment on such short notice for you, partner. I appreciate it. What'd you think of this trade with Hunter? Looks pretty good so far. Certainly on paper, he was the number 4 overall pick in the 2019 draft. And, LeVert was a valuable player. What did we give up in Yang? Of course, the draft picks, but your take.
Yeah, again, you're giving up second round picks, which really mean nothing. Usually those are, guys that are just trying to hang on, or, those get moved so many times that, those guys usually never pan out. You might find a diamond in a rough here or there. So that's the throw. And you mentioned Niang, who a guy, if anything, is durable. He'll play every game. He played every game when he was here with Cleveland. He's going to be in the lineup. Maybe one night he'll give you double digits. The other night he'll give you 0 on an 0 for 6 night shooting. So that wasn't much. Caris LeVert had an expiring contract coming up, and Hunter is a guy that the Cavaliers have liked for a couple of years. They wanted to move Caris LeVert last year, couldn't find the right taker, so you hold on to him, let him have a little bit more value. Again, he was very good coming off the bench, but you're now upgrading to another bench piece that could potentially be a starter that can come in here, fit right in. He, as you mentioned, the number 4 pick, 1 pick ahead of Darius Garland, a teammate of Ty Jerome, who was also picked in that same 16 draft. Him and Ty go back to their days at Virginia. So you already have a good working relationship there. And in the 2 games that he has played so far, 1 start, 1 coming off the bench, has been very well, has fit in perfectly for what the Cavaliers are looking for. And if you go back to the game early February where they played Boston, it was a TNT game. So I was able to sit at home and actually watch it and not have to worry about trends and things that were going on in the game. And that's when it hit me that the Cavaliers look small compared to Boston. So now you go out and you get a guy that can help, combat what the Boston Celtics are going to throw at you. Because again, I think they might be the real and only competition you have trying to come out of the East.
Yeah, no question about it. And you actually anticipated my next question. Is there anybody else except for Boston that can beat this Cavaliers team, considering this surprisingly fabulous success the team has enjoyed under Atkinson this year?
Yeah, it's going to be a good test coming up Friday. The New York Knicks are going to come into town. It's a team that the Cavaliers, met a couple years ago in the postseason. So you maybe be able to spark something there, and the guys obviously will be up for that challenge. But outside of that, I don't know. Everyone else down below 5 and below don't really worry me. Yes, the Hawks have given you trouble this year, especially in the 2 previous games back in February, where they gave the Cavaliers back-to-back losses for the first time this year. Maybe if they get hot, they're a little bit of a worry. Orlando, we know what happened there last year, but they've been so injury prone and guys shuffling in and out. Detroit, the Cavaliers have had their number. So JB, even though he's done a fantastic job with the Pistons, they don't worry me. We'll see if Milwaukee turns it around with the trades that they made, getting Kuzma to come in, getting rid of Chris Middleton. But again, I think it's a 2-team race between Cleveland and Boston.
And I think the second half of the season, the mythical second half of the season, is very important for the Cavs to solidify home court advantage. We've got it against Boston and everybody else here in the East, but I'm talking about Oklahoma City because they proved in that second game, obviously, that they are the real serious challenge if indeed the Cavaliers can claim the East over Boston. So I think that home court in the NBA Finals, should that be the matchup with Oak City, is very important. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And as you talked about, the first game here was phenomenal between OKC and Cleveland. The second game there did not go as planned or as the Cavaliers would have hoped, as they got waxed pretty well in that one. On the other side, they played decently against Houston. The game here in late January was not a good one for the Cavaliers. The Rockets came in, but I don't think they're too big of a worry. This week, we finally get to see Memphis for the first time. The Cavaliers will play them on Sunday, the first meeting of the year. So we have one more where we have to go there in a couple of weeks. So Memphis intrigues me a little bit just because they have that kind of firepower that the Cavaliers have. They have a ton of 40-point quarters. They score a ton. So they worry me a little bit right now on paper, just because I haven't seen them in person yet. And we'll be able to see that coming up on Sunday.
I'll tell you what, Oklahoma City's going to have their hands full with the Lakers now with this trade for Luka. And once they get their chemistry together, and they made it at the right time, obviously, because now they have this second half of the season for LeBron and him and the teammates of the Lakers to get acclimated to one another. Don't think for a minute that they're not looking ahead to the playoffs. This was a calculated move, not just for the future of the Lakers after LeBron hangs it up, but this season as well.
No doubt. And I mean, you're getting one of the top 10, arguably top 5 players in the NBA. Sure, you're giving up some size in Anthony Davis. But again, if you can go out there and score more than your opponent, you're going to end up winning those big games when you need it. Sure, we know that, when he wants to, LeBron can play defense. But, you get LeBron to be that facilitator. Sure, he can still go out and score his 20, 30, 40 points in a ball game, but now you have a stud to go there and take that real load off of him. And Austin Reeves has done a very nice job being that kind of third option for them. So the Lakers could be a dangerous team coming up here in the postseason. I know as soon as that trade was made, people were saying, oh, it's going to be for next year and years to come. Yeah. But why give up on this year already? You have the pieces there to continue to make a run, and all you have to do is get hot.
Plus they picked up a 7-footer too.
Yeah, right. Yep. So, they're going to be one to watch for sure in this second half.
All right, Gene Winter's joining us, the statistical graphic designer for FanDuel Sports Cavaliers telecasts on FanDuel. And we come back, we'll shift gears with Gene, talk a little baseball. Spring training camps have opened in earnest all here in the Grapefruit League in Florida, and of course in the Cactus League in the Phoenix area. That's next. Bonus time with Drennan here on Big Play.
Now here is the risk that Brown had to take with
Hi, Bruce Drennan here for my good friends out at Menor Nissan. Race Minchak and the crew, love them, of course. I drive a Nissan Rogue, so does my wife. We brought that Nissan Rogue down here with the overhead bin, the storage bin, which gave us plenty of room because we're down here for a duration of time, and we need that space because I got to have all my golf outfits just in order, shoes, balls, everything else, the clubs. But I can't tell you how much I love that Rogue. Used to have a Murano, which is a little bigger Nissan product, and it's a great one. Check out the new 2025 Nissan Murano, the new 2025 Nissan Kicks, exclusive intelligent around view monitor, all kinds of great features. Of course, MentorNissan.com. You'll find that Mentor Nissan's a third generation family owned and operated company, focusing on the high level of customer care and service, and is a pillar in the local community. Sales staff, service staff, second to none. I've represented several car dealerships throughout my career here in Cleveland on radio and television. Mentor Nissan, number one, at the top of the list. Take my word for it. Love you, Mentor Nissan. Check it out. MentorNissan.com, MentorNissan.com. Once again, I love you, Mentor Nissan.
Now here is the risk that Brown had to take with
All right, back with bonus time with Drennan. Gene Winters, of course, is my special guest, and we want to shift gears and talk some baseball with camps opening up both in Florida and in Arizona. Guardians, this division produced, our division last year, Gene, produced 3 playoff teams. And it was considered going into last season as by far the weakest division in baseball. Turned out to be perhaps the most competitive. I foresee it again being very competitive. I actually look at it as a 4-team race.
Yeah, I'll agree with that as you look at it. And the one thing that I liked was that Detroit did not get Alex Bregman over the weekend, so that kind of helps.
I got to interrupt you. I played golf with a guy from Boston. Down here, and I said to him, you know what? I am the happiest guy that you're going to meet here in Florida, that you guys got Bregman, because that means Detroit didn't get him.
Right. And he thought for sure with the relationship with AJ Hinch that was going to be a perfect match for them. And yeah, the second that started to come down this weekend, it was like, thank you. I'll get him out of here and let him go over. But yeah, I'm interested to see if the Royals can continue the momentum that they had last year, continue that success, or are they going to fall back out of the pack? That's the team that I'm interested in seeing. We know the Twins will be there. We know the Guardians, and we know that the Tigers will be there.
Yeah, I agreed with you about Kansas City, because what did they do in the offseason?
Right.
I mean, their pitching has still got to be their forte. Speaking of Boston, I think now they become the more serious contender for the Yankees. And my personal opinion, I could be wrong on this, I think the Yankees will be even a better team without Soto. And here's why. They picked up Goldschmidt, and they picked up Bellinger, and let alone Fried in that starting rotation. And he doesn't have to be the main guy.
Right.
And then Williams, who's one of the best closers in the business.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even with Soto going to the Mets, and I'll get to them in a minute, but I think New York, but Boston may be the more serious, because Toronto didn't do anything. Nope. I understand that our old buddy Ross Atkins under Shapiro is on the hot seat. Shapiro should be too, considering what Anthopoulos did up there. And Baltimore didn't do anything. So I don't know. It'll be interesting in the East.
Yeah, and I think Baltimore, I'll go in reverse order. I think Baltimore is just hoping that their young kids continue to perform. They've had that strong farm system the last couple of years because they were so bad getting those high draft picks. They're hoping that the kids start to perform and didn't have to really go out and do anything. But again, if you're relying on prospects, if they don't pan out, you're going to drop from a 90, 100 win team back down into the 60s and 70s again. So they're going to be interesting if that young core can come together. Yes, Toronto went out and got Santander from Baltimore, and then but again, he had a 40 home run season. But is he going to be able to repeat that again? We'll see. There, in the negotiations, it doesn't look like Vladdy's happy there. So, are you going to be able to get through a full season with him at first base? And George Springer's been on the decline. So again, it seemed like a lot of smoke throughout the offseason for Toronto about all these names and all these guys that they were going to grab. And then you come to the end and there was nobody. But as you mentioned, the New York Yankees, Soto's gone, but you replace them with two guys that have been former MVPs, former all-stars, guys that could probably take advantage of that short porch in right field. And as you mentioned, you get Williams, one of the best relievers, best changeup in the game. You get him to come in the back end of that bullpen that has been iffy. Clay Holmes has had some success, but then he fades away. Then you start rotating guys around. You now have an anchor at the back of that bullpen to go ahead and shut teams down. So, and you mentioned with Fried too, you get a healthy Garrett Cole for the whole season, and now you throw him into the mix too. It's going to be interesting to see how that division and that 1-2 of New York and Boston play out.
I think it's got to be Houston and Texas in the West. I think Texas will make a comeback because they were so banged up a year ago.
Yeah.
Houston obviously loses Bregman, but they pick up Christian Walker.
Right. Yeah. And Max Scherzer was hurt for most of the season. He's now, mentioning Toronto, he's out there now. So, we'll see what Texas has in store. I'm interested to see with Seattle as well, because they've been kind of like floating around, vying for the postseason, then fading, and I'm interested to see how they play. But again, it's Houston's division to lose. You don't have to worry about Anaheim or the Angels, and you don't have to worry about Oakland either, or Vegas.
No. Yeah, can anybody beat the Dodgers in the National League? I mean, it's ungodly the money that they are spending. Yeah. They're making New York look cheap.
You're right. And every week it's, some big name is like, oh, no, he's on the Dodgers now. Or you look at, you're going through rosters and it's like, oh, where'd that guy go? Oh, of course he's, he went with the Dodgers. And, the way that they're spending, and they're getting all the international guys to come here to pair with Ohtani. I mean, it's going to be interesting. And, you wait to see, can they get all these egos and all these players to mesh? Well, they've done it for the last 2, 3, 4 years. So I don't have any doubt there that they're going to be able to do it again.
Yeah, I think the Central over there is up for grabs, but that East is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And I think what the Mets did in re-signing Alonso was critical for them, because otherwise Soto is just replacing the Alonso numbers. Now, Soto's a better all-around player. We all know that. We'll hit for a higher average. But the point is, by getting Alonso, now they've added to an already very lethal offense. The Braves were banged up last year. They should come back a lot healthier. Pressure's on Philadelphia, considering how talented they are with their payroll. That's a tough division.
Yeah, no doubt. And, the Marlins had some success last year. I don't see them being a factor, but they've had recent success. So can they, get into that mix at all? But as you talked about, it's going to be a top heavy race. And, the part for the Mets that interests me is, will Francisco Lindor be able to replicate what he did last year? Especially since he's been with the Mets. He's been a first half player and then fades off in the second half. Last year, finally put a full season together, was in the MVP talks. Obviously, Ohtani was going to win it no matter what. But you take Francisco Lindor's numbers from last year and put it in any other season, and he probably wins MVP. But he didn't fade off. Now you have that extra support in that lineup to stack it down with Soto in there. And as you mentioned, once they missed out on the rumors of trying to get Vladdy, bringing Alonso back is the perfect fit. Get him for another 1-year deal. Let him go out there and perform and see if he can make his money next year come free agency. But you lengthen that lineup now. You still have stars there, and you should be able to go out and match. We know the Braves still have the pitching. So will the strong lineup of the Mets be able to take on that pitching?
Well, batter up. Here we go. Spring training has begun. Gene, thanks so much. We're going to do this again, buddy. Keep everybody up to date on the Cavs as closely as you are with the team and your assignment, as the statistical graphic designer for Cavaliers telecasts on FanDuel. Gino, thanks so much, buddy. Talk to you soon.
No problem. Anytime.
Gene Winters. All right, we'll be back in a minute. Curtis Danburg of the Guardians front office will be joining us. Tell us all about this new television deal. That's next on Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network.
Now here is the risk that Brown had to take with
All right, welcome back. Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. Curtis Danburg, the Vice President of Communications for the Cleveland Guardians, joins us. Curtis, good to have you on the show again. How you doing, pal?
I'm doing great. It's baseball season.
You darn right. Batter up. You are coming our way this morning from Arizona from Goodyear at the Guardians camp. And of course, full workouts have begun for the Guardians. Now the other major league teams. But as I said last week, when the Guardians announced a new TV deal, I said I was going to try to get Curtis on this week to really simplify and inform you fans, educate you on this new television package. And the Guardians and Major League Baseball launching Guardians TV in 2025. This is the first local direct to consumer streaming option available at Cleveland Guardians TV. Simplify as best you can. Curtis, tell us about it.
Yeah, so very exciting. I think the biggest change and the biggest opportunity is we can expand our reach in the market over 230%. So for the people that were cord cutters and didn't have cable anymore, there was no option to stream the product. So now with this new arrangement, we have the ability that if you don't have cable, that you can purchase our CLEGuardians.tv product and not have a blackout. So the blackout restrictions were in play; those had been lifted. And so $19.99 a month or $99.99 for the entire season, and you can watch Guardians baseball if you have a smart TV on your tablet, on your phone.
Can you get it now? Depending on what system the fans use, let me run through a few of them. Can you get the games on Hulu TV?
So distribution methods are still being discussed between Major League Baseball and providers. So whether that's Hulu or YouTube TV or Spectrum Cable or DirecTV Stream, we will know as we get closer to opening day what those services look like, if they'll be able to provide Guardians baseball. The one thing we do know is that you can stream it through CLEGuardians.tv currently.
Now, what is that? Explain that. Because let's say you said right before the start of the season, let's say it's announced that you have YouTube and you can't get the Guardians games on YouTube.
Correct.
What's involved in getting it? You don't want to miss the opener.
Correct. So you would go to let's say in that scenario, you would go to the App Store on your smart TV and purchase CLEGuardians.tv for the $99.99 for the season, and you get it. And you'll see the MLB logo, and you go on your smart TV and you pull it up and you can watch our games. So that's the part that fans haven't had a chance to do because of the blackout. This new relationship with MLB, the blackout goes away. That's how we can expand the reach for people in Northeast Ohio to have access to our games.
What if a fan purchases the MLB package? Does he get all the MLB games, including the Guardians?
No. So two separate things. So the CLE Guardians TV package is the local package. Then there's the MLB package. The MLB package still blacks out CLE Guardians TV. So you need the combo. You need to purchase both. So if you want both, that's $199 for the year. So $199.99 gets you both the CLE Guardians locally and all the MLB games for the season, excluding the exclusive national broadcasts.
What about some of the outlying markets? Obviously, the caravan, the old Indians used to take a caravan. You were part of that. Bobby D selected players. The manager would go in markets like Toledo, down to Columbus, over to Youngstown, etc. What about them as far as access to this new deal?
So they can purchase CLEGuardians.tv and have access to those as well. So, it opens up the lane for everybody by lifting up those blackout restrictions. So, hey, I get it. It's very complicated. We ask for everybody's patience while we work through it, especially until we have clarity on who, from a cable standpoint, who's going to be providing the games. But as soon as we get more information, we will be certain to communicate that out to our fans.
Curtis, my understanding is that in the long run, this will compensate, because I know the increase is something like 235% more possible viewers of a Guardians baseball. But so in the long run, I understand, I see the bigger picture, but how are so many teams doing this? And I know there's a lot of teams that have done it, like the Guardians are, and there's other teams that are still taking those rights fees, like, of course, the Guardians and Indians used to do from Fox Sports Ohio, then Bally's, now FanDuel. Some are doing it, some are not.
We're in a transitional period. So San Diego and Arizona were the first teams in 23. They jumped mid-season to the MLB model. Colorado jumped right before the season last year. This year, it's us, the Twins, and Seattle. So there were teams that were considering that and even, committed to MLB, but end up jumping back to your point to be with FanDuel. We're in this weird period where there's a lot of jockeying. People were trying to figure it out from a financial standpoint. And but to your point, I think is correct. It's a little bit of a short-term pain, but I think long-term gain when we think of the bigger picture and where this is headed.
Now, you're going to still do a pregame show, but only for home games, do I understand?
Correct. So the MLB model allows, we're going to do a 30-minute pregame show at home. We'll do a 15 to 20-minute postgame show, home and road, but we will not have a pregame show on the road. So we
why
don't
is that? Why not? Why not?
On the MLB model, we don't have a set per se. We have a set at the ballpark, but we don't have a studio. So that is a decision that MLB that's kind of the vision they have, is to not do that. The game crew, so Rick and Matt and Andre, for most games, will do a post-game show from the road, but there will not be a pregame show. We'll come on the air at 7 o'clock for a 7:10 game and do a little 10-minute open, and then it's game time.
Now, Al Pulowski will still be employed as MC of the pregame show, and you have some new participants, I understand.
Yeah, we're going to be testing and learning. A lot of alums coming back in the fold, whether that's Jason Kibness and Cody Allen and Austin Jackson, Nick Goody, Ben Broussard. So Chris Jimenez will take the predominantly most of the reps for pre and post at home. But we're going to integrate some new talent and like I said, test and learn and see what they have. They're all very interested in getting involved, and we're happy to have them.
To my understanding, not this season, but is it a possibility that in future seasons, after you get your feet planted with this, you may be producing other shows like we used to do for the Indians with Tribe Report and Spring Training Daily, those type of special shows?
Yeah, I mean, we're walking before we run, and we'll see where this takes us. I mean, right now, the station that we will have, once we get cable providers, you'll have a specific channel that you'll tune into, and there won't be any programming until the pregame show comes on. So your channel guide will say, tune in tonight on channel 650 and to watch the game. So whether there's shoulder programming or how we handle that, we're still in those beginning stages and discussions. And one thing to point out too, from a near-term situation, spring training, pretty clear we will not have any of the spring training games on cable. So the only option to see us beginning Saturday will be on CLEGuardians.tv, and for spring training it'll be free. So all you need to do is register for CLEGuardians.tv, and you can watch our games streaming for free.
So your advice to the fans is just sit tight, be patient until you make your next announcement as to what vehicle and what they can do to get the games on television.
Yeah, and then for the near term, spring training, go register, check out the games on free, get a feel for that streaming product, while we wait to see what cable providers will come on board as we get closer to the season.
Okay, and before you know it, the season will be upon us as spring training has started for all the major league teams in both the Cactus and here in the Grapefruit League in Florida. Curtis, as always, thank you. We'll have you keep us up to speed on this. We'll have you again in spring training, bud.
That sounds like a plan. Appreciate you having me.
Appreciate it.
Go Guards.
Curtis Danburg, Vice President of Communications for the Cleveland Guardians. Back in a minute with more bonus time with Drennan here on Big Play.
Now here is the risk that Brown had to take with
Our thanks to Curtis Danburg of the Cleveland Guardians front office. We'll have him on again to further explain how you can watch Guardians baseball with this new package for the upcoming season. I wanted to address this before the end of today's show. The National Hockey League is trying a different format for their All-Star break. 4 countries have been chosen to compete against one another, like they do in the Olympics, in the Winter Olympics. Now, last Thursday, prior to the puck dropping in the game between the United States and Finland, during the playing of the national anthem, the American national anthem, the Canadian fans, and the game was played in Montreal, the Canadian fans booed loudly amidst the rising political tensions between the United States and Canada, which you may be aware of. Then Saturday night in Montreal, prior to the start of the game between the U.S. and Canada, the fans booed loudly again during the playing of our national anthem. Well, the American players had had enough. And when the puck dropped, it took only 2 seconds for American Matthew Tkachuk to drop the gloves and go after Canadian player Brandon Hagel. That fight was followed by only 6 seconds of hockey when Matthew Tkachuk's brother Brady squared off with Canadian Sam Bennett. When that second fight finally ended, the refs dropped the puck again, and Team USA's J.T. Miller went after Canada's Colton Porenko. Prior to the Four Nations face-off, as it was being called, Canadian fans have been loudly booing the national anthem. In other words, there were 3 fights the Americans initiated after only 8 seconds of play, actual time off the clock. Of course, this is a response to President Trump's threatening to impose tariffs on Canada, as well as suggesting that Canada become our 51st state and stop the influx of fentanyl into this country from our northern border. And Trump sarcastically calling extreme liberal Prime Minister Trudeau Governor Trudeau. Now, whether you love or hate Trump, whether you agree or disagree with his policies, the fact is we're giving billions of dollars to Canada and getting what in return? Nothing. Except for Canadians calling Trump a dictator and a Nazi. Let me remind our Canadian neighbors that if it wasn't for the United States of America, there wouldn't even be a National Hockey League. Give me a break. These hockey players are making millions of dollars. All the Canadian cities that enjoy having an NHL franchise are realizing millions in revenue, jersey sales, concessions, television ratings. The vast majority of teams in the National Hockey League are located in the United States. And if that were not the case, oh, sure, the Canadians would still be able to have a league with their own cities competing with one another. But who would care? Nobody. And all the countries like Finland, Sweden, Russia, and all the rest would not go to Canada to be part of the Canadian League because the money would dry up fast. There wouldn't be the money that there is to pay these great athletes without the United States of America. So screw those Canadians who booed our national anthem. Screw them. Oh, by the way, I watched the replay of the fights, and in my opinion, the Americans won every one of them and definitely delivered and landed more punches. Team USA beat Canada 3-1 when play finally resumed. I applaud those Team USA players. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. Ask Bruce segment is next.
Now here is the risk that Brown had to take with
All right, wrapping things up with the Ask Bruce segment before we get to the questions. This last Saturday, number 1 in college basketball, March Madness right around the corner. Number 1 Auburn defeated number 2 Alabama 94-85, and the new rankings are out. Auburn number 1, Florida number 2. Boy, the SEC. That was supposed to be a football conference. Look at all these teams from the SEC. Auburn's 1, Florida's 2, Alabama's 4, Tennessee is 6, Texas A&M is 7. It's incredible, Pat. Incredible.
Yeah, college basketball is one of my favorite things, man. College basketball is such a great time of the year.
We'll have a good time covering it as it approaches, and we'll have some guests as well as we have in the past here on Bonus Time with Drennan. All right, fire away.
Yeah, ask Bruce. So we got our first question here. The Guards take on the Reds actually in their spring training opener on February 22nd. Hey, Bruce, how much more meaning is there in the Ohio Cup this year now that Tito is the manager?
You know, the Ohio Cup. I've said sarcastically over the years, even if the Reds and or the Guardians have a bad season at the end of in the off season, when these players go to their respective homes, if they had a horrible season, the team had a horrible season, do you think they're saying, well, at least we won the Ohio Cup? I don't think so. But I will say it's going to be very interesting to see how Francona does with that Cincinnati Reds ball club. He's got De La Cruz, who's one of the best athletes in all of Major League Baseball. And God bless Tito. He's healthy now, and I'm happy for him. I hope he does well over there.
Yeah, it feels weird to see him in that Reds uniform, though, doesn't it? Man,
yeah,
it feels weird.
You know, that's baseball, but interesting that he had developed a relationship with that Reds organization from being married.
I mean, they share the facility in Arizona too. Yeah. So another one for you here. Hey, Bruce, who's more likely to have a bounce back for the Guardians this year, Tristan McKenzie or Logan Allen?
They're projecting McKenzie. I think that's a very difficult one to answer until we see how they both perform in spring training and who gets the nod. One of them's obviously going to start in AAA because this bullpen is so packed and loaded. But I think it's going to depend on how they both pitch in AAA. But right now, the early projections are that McKenzie has the inside nod to go along. And just think, the Yankees didn't have Cole until the All-Star break. We figured to get Bieber about the All-Star break. That's a real good thing.
Yeah, he's throwing bullpens now, too. It's beautiful to see. All right, Bruce, last one for you. So the Cleveland Rockers are, it's reported that they're going to be coming back in 2028 to the city of Cleveland. Do you think this Cleveland can support another team coming back, especially a team like the Rockers in the WNBA?
Well, if we had Caitlin Clark, I wouldn't even hesitate answering that question. But unfortunately,
she'd be a free agent that year that they come back. She'd be a free agent.
Well, spend the money and get her because she's saving that sport, in my opinion. I don't know. It's an impossible question to answer. I'd like to think that we can because I do believe so emphatically in women's sports, provided the transgender men are not competing. And with that being said, I'll leave you with that. That's all the time we have for this week's version of Bonus Time with Drennan here on the Big Play Sports Network. My thanks to Pat McGuire for joining us, subbing for Ryan Smith. Ryan, get those car problems fixed out. Everything will be cool, man. Pat, thank you very much. And we'll be back next week with another show. I'm Bruce Drennan. Until then, as always, and most importantly, you remember, I love you, Ohio, and I love you, Cleveland.
Now here is the risk that Brown had to take with